Hello. Today, I'd like to talk about what it is like to resolve your psychology. I'm a spiritual person, so it's really important to acknowledge that it is possible and put it to day practice. And recently, I had two cases where it kind of showed that I can use this as an example. First experience is a phone call that I received threatening to kill me. Basically, there was a miscommunication about some service, or there was a misunderstanding of some sort. And he said he wanted to kill me and stuff. And I reacted in a way to de-escalate the situation. Just neutral reactions, just saying okay. And he hung up after saying some curse words. So there was nothing more that I could do, or maybe I could have called him back and say some things. But either way, uh, he ended the phone call, and I was very disoriented in a way because it's been such a long time since I had this kind of interaction with people. And I noticed that this disturbed emotion, uh, an emotional reaction where I feel a bit of anger, um, a bit of hatred, or this just general discomfort. And this in a sense, I felt unsafe, and I wanted to go fight, but I had a sense of asking, why am I feeling this? It's keep trying to keep this neutral mind, not forcing it, but acknowledging that I feel these emotions that arises from the experience, the physical experience, and look internally how I actually experience this reality or this physical experience. Um, and I would ask questions about why am I experiencing this, and blaming the situation that he didn't understand, or the negative emotions will arise. It's what I had. It's the reaction that I had, and I felt uneasy and uncomfortable for almost a day. And and it's important to recognize that there is a discomfort, but it's not a kind of discomfort where you feel preoccupied about this experience and you would uh, 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 live a day just completely phased. It wasn't like that. It was more like, what is the reason why I had this experience? Because being a spiritual person, we know that the physical is a reflection of the mental and the emotional. Well, the further up there's identity, but uh, more or less it's about the mental reflecting to the emotional and the physical. And the physical experience that I have is that, and it means that there's something in the mental realm that I need to resolve about in my mind. And because I'm aware that the physical is a reflection of a mental, I can say, okay, there is a psychology to resolve. I do not know what exactly it is that makes me feel like this or have a reaction like this, internal reaction like this, but it's important. That's the first thing I do. I recognize that there's psychology to resolve because I had this negative reaction occurring inside me. So I meditated. So I meditated to ask, what is exactly is the psychology that I have to resolve? And often these psychologies, these selves that we create, or the ego that we create, is very subtle and sometimes even very specific. It's very specific to me these days. I've been resolving general psychologies about a lot of things, but there was a theme that I've been experiencing my whole life that I didn't really recognize because I never addressed them before. Most probably because I also wasn't ready to do that. And after almost 4 hours of meditation, I realized that I have experienced security and safety related issues throughout my whole life. I was bullied at school, and I have been physically assaulted by a teacher very hardly, and home invasion, car accidents, and other minor racism related issues, or somebody putting a gun against my head. I experienced those things a lot, but I never really recognized them about what exactly these situations were. I just said, well, it's just what it is. And I didn't really pay attention to these details and what exactly these things did to me in mentally speaking. And also, I realized, and I noticed that my current physical state compared to when I was in the military is very different. And I realized that I lived in some form of fear in this security, lack of security reality for quite a long time. Yeah, for almost 20 years. And this realization is recognizing the psychology that I have to resolve. And I recognize it so it can be resolved. I acknowledge that it exists and I recognize it very specifically. And I can pinpoint, oh, it is about my security, sense of security. I felt threatened. Obviously, he threatened to kill me. But I can just say, oh, well, he's projecting or whatnot. But I don't think he's actually going to do it. Probably he's not going to do it. But there's a sense of threat. And I had a reaction internally where I would think mentally, there are reactions where I would think in a certain situation where maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that. Or emotionally, I feel negative. I feel a sense of violence, a sense of remorse, shame, or regret. But these aren't. But these are not really real emotions. These are not my emotions in a way, because it's from a self or ego that was feeding off of my energy whenever I felt threatened or I felt insecure about something. Let's call this ego or the self insecurity. Let's say unsafe ego. Let's just call it this unsafe ego that wants to be safe but feeds the energy by being unsafe from me. This ego has been doing its best to stay hidden and also been living quite a long time in my mental realm. So my approach is that if I can notice it, I can resolve it. It takes some time and it does actually require a lot of effort, but it can be done. And because I've been doing it for some time now, I can do it rather smoothly. So my next step is to acknowledge that I feel it. I acknowledge that I actually felt it. Okay. It may not be my emotions, but it is being triggered by my ego, my unsafe ego. But nevertheless, it has been triggered inside me. And I have gave my reaction the experience that I have internally. And I feel it. I feel discomfort, irritation, some anger, the tendency of violence. I feel it. I acknowledge that. And then also feel that it is due to not being secure, due to the experiences that I had in my life. And also we have to recognize that it reinforces itself to strengthen itself in a way. And these egos, they do whatever they can. Really, they're not. These egos are not self-aware that they can do things, but they are self-aware enough that they exist and they can prolong their existence by triggering a certain emotion or this energy from me for them to exist longer or to live longer. And if this takes place for a long time, they can do some absurd shit, and it's actually this is where a lot of people feel difficulty resolving the issue. If it takes too long, ever since it's been feeding off your energy, or if you reinforce it as well, because you feel and you grow another ego to attach to it, that it reinforces itself mutually. So it's there are some complicated cases about it, but I acknowledge that I feel it, and this combination has allowed me to feel understood internally about how I feel, about how I feel and why I feel such a thing, why I have such thoughts and emotions in related to that situation. And it's important, and this is where this acceptance or acknowledgement has to go to. I accept it, however, it's not from my higher self. My consciousness is just here, I am just experiencing this reality, and due to the layers of reality or the layers of ego that I have put on myself, not voluntarily, but due to my survival mechanism throughout my life. It's not wrong to feel those, but it is important to see that it's not really you. It's just this ego that we put on ourselves. And this specific ego that I resolved, there is a resistance. There's a resistance to be resolved from this ego. And internally, I feel even more. Oh, if I don't have this ego, I will feel even more insecure or unsafe. And more questions arises in this process. And it's a form of this survival method for that ego to exist within me. And that's where you have to recognize as well, it's trying to fight back. And these emotions arise where I feel the most discomfort related to that specific ego. And for me, it was insecurity about my safety, not feeling so safe. And my memories would come up. All these very strong memories that related to this emotion, this ego arises. Home invasion, getting robbed, armed robberies, all these things that I experienced, where my safetyness, my safety was violated by someone else's violence, and I would have that. And by recognizing it, you can also say, it means I'm about to resolve it. I'm doing fine. And when there is this understanding of what's actually happening or why you feel such a thing, the ego can't really fight that. The ego can't really fight that this understanding that arises internally, that you're growing out of it. And yeah, I questioned several times to be able to recognize and to be able to let it go. That one, I recognize the physical is a reflection of the mental, so there's psychology to resolve. And two, if it can be recognized, I can resolve. This is just a step that I do. And it is really important to be persistent. I can be persistent to resolve this psychology because I spent some time doing this. But it's possible for everyone, depending on the severeness and and how one may react to it, but it is possible. It is possible to resolve if you want to. So there are more steps and more delicate internal reactions that you have or one may experience while resolving their psychology. But that's the point, that you can resolve it if you recognize it. And the addition, well, this is actually really important experience to actually add to the point. Now I think that I resolved it because I felt the energetic release, and I sense it I just sense that it's gone now. I'm not gonna have this kind of reaction anymore if my security gets threatened. Of course, with that, I also have to acknowledge that I am physically unable in a way. I'm not capable as much as I used to be. So I have to work out and take some courses about what I need to do. But today's experience is what shows that I actually resolved this psychology. So I was walking and minding my own business, and these two individuals came up to me and started barking, like actually barking, imitating a dog's barking, right beside my ear. And I was, for some reason, I wasn't phased as much. Perhaps it's because I saw this dog they had with them, but I wasn't phased as much for some reason. But perhaps they didn't get the reaction they wanted from me, and or maybe they needed in a way. And I just tried to ignore. I tried to ignore, but for some reason they wanted a fist bump, and I thought if I just give it to them, maybe they'll just go. Maybe they'll just go. Clearly, these people are suffering internally. They have a lot of issues in their life. So I did a fist bump. I could have just ignored now to think about it, but I did it anyway. Maybe that was my mistake. But either way, uh, they walked off right after that. They walked off, and I was on my way to my bicycle, and I noticed that they also noticed my bicycle, which was such a coincidence. But they noticed my bicycle, and I just instinctively walked a bit slow so that they can just walk by, or I can react differently. And I saw that they just walked away after looking at my bicycle, and I felt that, oh, okay, I don't need to interact with them anymore. So as I unchained my bicycle and put a lot get on it, they came back and asked. They actually surrounded me. There were two people, and they surrounded me in a way that I can't go anywhere. And they started to get a little bit too close to me, like right beside me, and they started asking how much my bike is, and started saying some things that I couldn't really understand because their accents were too strong. But I heard that they asked me how much my bike is, and I said, well, it's none of your business. Maybe also, if I said I don't know or acted stupid, maybe they would have just walked away. But one of them started saying some incomprehensible things, again, due to the accent being too strong for me to understand. He just headbutted me. He just headbutted me, and yeah, that's what happened. I could have reacted differently to de-escalate the situation even more, but out of nowhere, some lady came by. Perhaps, probably it's one of their companion. Uh, she stopped the fight, which I didn't even want to, but they were ready to actually put more violence on me because I saw them reaching out for some things in their little pouch in front of them, the pockets. Um, and then she took them and they walked off. And I went the opposite way this time with my bike. And I went and I came home and I felt okay. Let's try to just sense how I feel. I just started laughing. I just started laughing that I noticed. It's because I noticed that there was no anger or an urge to find them and puts do revenge. Basically speaking, there was no urge to fight them or to think further about what they did to me. But I had a reflection internally that I no longer have that insecurity that I resolved about my safety, because I felt that I could, I don't know why, perhaps it's an illusion that I have, that I can just fight them back. And in a way, I felt a release or the acceptance or that I don't have to feel insecure about such a thing. Of course, it's best not to experience these things, but I did anyway. So I have to think now. Okay, what's actually happening inside me now? Internally speaking, how am I feeling? What are the thoughts that's arising? And there, I did not see any emotional or mental urge to fight them or even report them actually, or some a sense that there was nothing against them anymore that was coming inside of me. At first I thought, is it because I have now zero sense of security, or is it because I actually overcame it last experience when I was verbally threatened? um, I realized that I actually completely let go of that ego, that ego that was feeding off of my energy. I actually just let it go. And in a way, I took this experience as a confirmation. Yeah, Wonbin, you actually did let it go now. And I could have, I would have in the past. Oh, they're being racist against me, or they're just trying to bully on some foreigner, or it's because I'm too small and they're just picking on me. And oh, this place is not safe anymore, so I have to feel a sense to retaliate, so that before they put more violence on me, so I have to like find them and kill them, or and all this like these thoughts that disturb our inner peace would arise, but I didn't have them anymore. But in a way, after a bit of meditation, I realized that I felt a bit of pity for them. I felt pity. Ah, these people are suffering so much internally, and their life is already just too messed up. It's just too difficult for them, and there's no way to live a life other than the way they behaved today to me. And then when I acknowledged this sense the emotion that I was feeling, or the thought that arose, I heard internally this like saying good job, basically. I heard energetically, and I felt good job on actually admitting this and experiencing this physical experience, and my internal experience is also grown up out of what I wanted to experience. That I don't have to experience that way anymore. My reality doesn't have to be like that anymore. And after this, right after this, a few other things came up in the mind in the meditation. Some are how Jesus talked about turn the other cheek and love your enemies, although I couldn't because they just left. And this sense of forgiveness, being a man, I if I was just this let's say I would let's say that I didn't resolve the psychology. Being a man, my pride would have hurt so much because I was assaulted publicly, and there were actually many people who witnessed this as well. But pride was one of the first things that I resolved. So I didn't have that, but if I didn't resolve the psychologies, my pride would have hurt me too much, and I would have done other things. I would have done things as well. But knowing that it's possible to resolve and actually taking the action to resolve this, it's it's a kind of growth that anybody can do, and it's something that takes time, but in a way, resolving psychology allows you to live a life you want, allows you to live a life you want and have live the way you want to live, have this internal experience that is completely different from how others would experience. There was a little urge to fight them, but that's the dumbest thing I could do. It's because I just saw them reaching for something else in the pocket. They could have had a knife or some even worse. But I could just see that, okay, I don't have to fight them. Okay, but whatever the reason is, they have an issue, and I don't have to react violently or emotionally or so um, reactively. I don't have to be so reactive about whatever I experience physically. The lesson is, or the point is, that when you recognize that there's a psychology or an ego or the self that you notice, when you recognize it, when you notice it, you have it, and if it's specific enough, you can resolve it by yourself. Although it takes time and effort, you can resolve it by yourself. And ultimately, this way of being allows you to live a life you want to live. Basically, after you resolve the psychology, you can tell yourself how you would like to live, and basically you can live a life that you want to be by programming a subconscious, the way you want to react. And I hope that this case actually shows you that it is possible, that it's possible to resolve. I'm not someone who is exceptional in when it comes to meditations, or I'm not someone who is extraordinary, but I have been practicing resolving psychology for a while now. And every day there is some form of experience, a reaction that you can notice. And if you notice, you can resolve. I hope this helps. I hope this helps. And I hope you have a great day. I actually do. I really hope that you have a great day. Bye.